Well, good morning. If you were in San Francisco 4 years ago at the first Minds and Machines, you would have been one of 150 people sitting there, and the theme of that Minds and Machines was what I would call the idea. We talked about this idea of digital transformation in the industrial world and how that was just beginning. It was very early on, and I think most people didn't really understand what that was about. When you look at this year's conference, I think it's about the how. And that's really what I want to talk to you about, is the how. How should you begin to think about going on this digital transformative journey that is happening? I think just listening to Beth and Jeff 4 years ago wasn't so obvious. But today, as I talk to customers, I think it's clear that a digital industrial movement is underway. I think what everyone wants to now know is the how. And I think you just can't wait until it's obvious, because by that time it will be too late. The winners will be those who have made the investments and gone on the journey. So when you look at the next 2 days and everything you see out there, it's really about the how. How can you accomplish this? How can you get started? How can you take what you may have already been on and move forward with it in a different way? So I want to talk about the how. And I think first part of the how is I'd like to start, given we're here in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, is there's one thing we can learn from the consumer folks. And I think if you went and talked to them, they probably would never say it this way. But there's really only one thing you can learn from these consumer internet giants for the industrial space. And I think the key learning there is that what they've done well is they take an asset. Now, they happen to take somebody else's asset, by the way. They don't actually own the asset. But they take an asset that's underperforming and they make it more efficient. That's what Airbnb and Uber do. If you think about Apple, that's what they do with everybody else's software. They make it more efficient to deliver it, and then they take a portion of the earnings. If you think about Google, that's what they've done with advertising. They've taken someone else's asset and made it more efficient by using search as the method to do that. I think we're living in a world where the winners figure out how to take an asset and make it more productive. And that's what the industrial world is. It is made up of assets. Now, I think that's one thing to learn. What I don't think is this is going to be a world led by the startups. I think this is going to be a world led by industrial companies, small, medium, and large. I'm going to talk a lot about how GE has done it, and hopefully you can learn from that. But I think I'd put it in this perspective. It actually is a bigger opportunity than the consumer world is. It's not about being cool or being friends. It's not about freemium models and things like that. It's about productivity in your businesses in a new and different way. It's about the ability to take your products and services and differentiate them using digital in a way your competitors can't. I think it's also the idea that we're going to see a new generation of platforms in the same way that we see platforms like Uber's a platform, or Airbnb is a platform. We're going to see new platforms appear, but I think it's going to be industrial companies that'll lead the way in these platforms that can really change the industrial world. Now, if you look at our blueprint for how we do it, it's actually pretty simple. And it's probably different than if you read a book on digital transformation, you might hear. If you read a book on digital transformation, you probably hear, oh, go into an adjacency. Well, we actually did it quite different than starting in an adjacency. We started with ourselves. And the beauty of every industrial firm out there is they can start with themselves. So for us, it was GE for GE. It was our manufacturing capabilities. And what could we learn about productivity there? It was our services businesses who really led the way for us in the early days of looking at how to change what we do in services. When you do it for yourself, you learn, you establish deep insight into your own machines and your own processes. You gather a lot of data, you get a lot of intellectual capital, and by the way, you save money. Then, at the same time, you can begin to rethink your own services for your existing customers. Add in digital capability. You know, our renewables business did this. And you'll see this, they did a lot on services and how they do remote monitoring and diagnostics. But a lot of that data and learning and algorithms are used in a capability called Power Up that allows you to generate more electricity on the wind turbines. So learn how to do it for yourself, get that information, knowledge, and transfer that into new offerings for your customers. The other thing we believe is that you can move into adjacencies and take what you've learned, and if you've done really interesting, compelling things for yourself and your customers, you can take that and go to the world. And we decided that Predict was our way to do that. Predict is an industrial operating system we think that will enable all this, but there will be other platforms built, we hope, on Predict that will solve other kinds of problems out there. And I think every industrial firm, if you walked away with one thing in the next 2 days, it's learning how do you do it for yourself, how do you do it for your customers, then how do you do it to extend into adjacencies? That's, we think, the way the industrial world will do it different than has been done, let's say, in the consumer world. The other thing we hope you begin to explore and look into is what we're doing with Predict. We think what we learned for ourselves is how to take and build a platform inside and then realize this was something everyone was going to need and take it outside. And we launched it last February, and we continue to make huge strides in this. You're going to hear a lot about Predict, but if you walked away with one thing from this talk is, think about this. Predict is an architecture. It's about a cloud-to-edge architecture. And the edge is going to play an important part in the industrial world that's less important in the consumer world. In fact, I think we see there'll be more processing at the edge than maybe in the cloud, because you're going to have a real-time nature. You're going to have to be in the power plant or in the oil field or on the vehicle. So it's a cloud-to-edge architecture. And we don't do it by ourselves, we do it with partners. You see the partners below, and I'll just take one. When you think about edge architecture, we talk about Intel. And I'm going to bring Intel out here to talk about what we're doing, because it's going to change the nature of processing at the edge. And if you look at our architecture, we bring all those partners in because they're the same people working with our customers. And it makes it easier to do business when we're working with the same people that they already have capability with. The second thing about Predict is it's a technology, and we're making huge investments in things like cybersecurity and digital twin. A little over a year ago, we bought WorldTech for cybersecurity. Today, we announced 2 acquisitions, Wise.io, which really gives us a machine learning capability that will embed in Predict, and BitStew. And many of you are customers of BitStew, and I've talked to you about the idea of how you ingest data from your systems, from your machines into Predict will be enhanced through BitStew. We're also providing more application capability than before. Asset performance management. Meridian, 60 days ago, we acquired Meridian. Yesterday, we announced ServiceMax, which Jeff talked about. Meridian is about how you optimize a machine or an asset. ServiceMax is how you optimize a process. And we think those are going to be the cornerstone of everything that's built in this digital industrial world. The last thing Predict is an ecosystem and a global distribution method. And it is a way that we can work with you, with your partners, but also is a way we can help you distribute this on a global basis. So you can see we're making investments in inorganic, organic plays. We're partnering and bringing all this together in a way that we think will establish the industrial operating system. And you're going to learn about that over the next couple days. Digital twin, it's not AI that's going to solve a problem. AI is an enabler. What you do with it, though, is we think the center point of value in the industrial world is going to be the digital twin, which is a way for you to monetize your data, to build your value domain-added capabilities in using AI and statistics. And that'll tell you a lot about the past. And then use that to model out all the options you might have for the future. We don't think the answer is AI. It's a combination of AI and statistics with physics-based modeling, with data. When you put that together, you've got a digital twin. Tell me about the past, predict the future, and let me optimize things. And by the way, today GE has 550,000 digital twins active and running. We think that every individual machine in the world will have its own digital twin, and that's how we're going to really get the efficiency. This is what you do with AI to be able to create your value and deliver it in your world. We've had great momentum over the last year. All of this is really new. We're on track to grow 20% on our revenues to $6 billion. At the end of Q3, we had 219 partners. We have over 270 today. We have 19,000 developers on Predix, on track to get to our 20,000. 100 Predix-based applications. You can see the momentum. I think when you go out there, you can touch the momentum. And that's really what we hope you learn over the next couple of days. The last thing is this is a great opportunity for you to talk to others about how they're doing it. I'm going to bring Jim Fowler out in a second. He's going to talk about productivity and how we do it in GE. But look, a ton of our customers are just doing it for their productivity and their customers. Lixil's doing it with bath and kitchen fixtures. Gerdau's doing it with steel mills. Terrell is doing it with their manufacturing facilities. Big and small machines on a global basis. But many companies are on the why not us bandwagon. Pitney Bowes was one of the early ones we saw becoming a digital industrial. They're here and can show you how they did it for themselves, did it for their customers, and they're moving into new capability. I'm going to bring Schindler out in a second to talk about what they're doing. We see NEC becoming a digital industrial. So the why not us is happening today. So I want to leave you with this one thought that as you go out and talk to everyone, talk to customers, see how people are doing it, I think that you can follow this blueprint. And you're going to see all of the things you see on this list out there. Everything is there and available for you. And we think that it's, GE really wants to help you for you in your productivity. You'll see that. We want to help you with your customers and your strategy about how you change your products and services. And we want to work with you, like we've done with Pitney Bowes and with Schindler, in rethinking how you can build all new digital capabilities for the market and take them out in a new way. I think this is the way GE can help you. I think you can learn this, and we hope that you want to become part of the Predix ecosystem. Now let's turn to learning a little more. I want to turn it over to our CIO, Jim Fowler, and I'll be back in a minute.
Good morning. Thank you. So if you haven't figured it out now, all this emergent change is really entering in what is going to become the next industrial revolution. The idea of taking enterprise data, combining it with machine data, with great software and analytics, is providing us the ability to create new outcomes for ourselves and for our customers. And inside GE, that's really made me start to rethink the way that we do IT, to really go from being a back office order taker to a front office productivity maker is the role that we're starting to play. And when you look at this, we call this GE for GE. GE for GE is about committing to deliver $1 billion in productivity for the company between now and 2020 through the use of these new technologies. We've already delivered about 500 million of that target in this year alone, and it's coming from all places. I thought I'd just give you one quick example: fasteners. Think about bolts, nuts, washers, screws. In fact, we have 200,000 part numbers inside GE across the company that are fasteners. So you're thinking, well, what the heck does fasteners have to do with digital industrial? Well, we've developed some technology to start to connect data from our engineering systems, 3D models, from our manufacturing systems, how those parts get made, from our sourcing systems around how those parts are actually purchased and what we pay for them, to actually start to find overlap. So these models that we're developing on Predix can find like parts that have similar makeup and qualities and start to match that up with data from our enterprise systems around pricing. We spend about $250 million a year on fasteners, and we've already taken out $50 million in cost by finding duplicate parts that had different prices and like parts that had unlike prices. And so this is really where a lot of the productivity is going to come from. But to get there wasn't that easy, right? We had to start thinking differently. Instead of thinking about each business as its own individual piston in the engine, we had to start thinking about the engine as a whole, right? Being able to compare that data across the entire company was really important to us. And the way that we started to think about this, we call the digital thread. The digital thread is about starting to stitch together all of the data that you have from birth to death for parts and for products. So from the time that we design the first part in a product, through its manufacturing, through its assembly, through its testing, through its operations, and even all of the performance statistics about how that part performs in its service life, all of that now gets stitched together in the company, not just within a business, but across the entire GE ecosystem. This allows us to start to identify how we can put products in to drive productivity. In fact, in IT, we're starting to organize around 5 product lines. Think about that like commercial, engineering, manufacturing, service, and global operations and finance. Those product lines are about then developing persona-based applications that can stitch together all of that information in a way that makes our team more productive, that makes the way they work easier. In fact, this last year, we really focused on the field engineer. Field engineers in GE are really the hardest working folks that we have. They are out in hot and harsh conditions in the middle of deserts. They're on the line with our customers. They're what really is the lifeblood of the company. And when you looked at how they had to do their job, they were literally interacting with processes across the entire value chain. In fact, from an IT perspective, 80 different systems to do their job. We said, you know, we got to change that. We've got to harness the power of Predix, which gives us the ability to link together transactions and data across the enterprise, along with a persona-based application called Field Vision that presents everything they need in a mobile, both connected and disconnected application, from drawings to work instructions, and you'll get a chance to see more of that in a demo tomorrow. The acquisition of ServiceMax even hones in further, looking at making sure we've got the right resources in the right place at the right time. So ServiceMax plus Field Vision inside GE have delivered $200 million in productivity over the last 18 months. This harnessing of data from machines, from enterprise, and stitching them together is what the digital thread is all about, and that's what's going to drive productivity. But it wasn't always that easy getting there. When you look at the lessons learned, we had to reinvent IT. We had to insource. I was over 74% outsourced. I'd given up the knowledge capital of how we run our processes and our systems. We've had to massively insource to bring that back in-house. We've had to build for the business, not for IT. These are not IT projects. These are solving large business problems with business sponsors who own their process area. And we've had to partner. Companies like PTC, who have announced a partnership this week to bring in new technology around how we visualize and how we can see how our parts are used and assembled to make the life of the field engineer more importantly. We do this as an ecosystem of partners going forward. But we're just starting, and this is really just where the transformation begins. Inside, this is no longer the IT that you were used to, who came in 20 years ago and spent 2 hours changing tapes in the morning. This is about changing business processes. This is about lean and digital and bringing those two things together with machine data in a way that was never possible before. And that's what's really going to enable the $1 billion of productivity inside the company. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bill. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. You know, we talked about the network and the power of the network, and I want to bring out two folks who are real digital leaders. They're partners. We buy from them, they buy from us, and we go to market together. So please welcome first the EVP and Chief Digital Officer of the Schindler Group, Michael Nilles, and the President of Intel's Client and IoT Businesses and Systems, Murthy Renduchintala. Come on out, guys. All right. Well, thanks for joining. So we'll have a little dialogue here. Let's start, talking about this idea of a digital journey. So Michael, tell us a little bit about Schindler's digital journey from being an elevator escalator company to digital industrial. What does that mean? What are you doing? How do you guys think about it?
Yeah, we have for the last decade certainly digitized first our infrastructure, we have digitized our processes, but this was all pretty much focused on internal optimization, on optimizing the bottom line. Then about 3-4 years ago, we were thinking about how can we really react to what's happening in the marketplace. We saw all these disruptors coming who were trying to come in between our customers and ourselves, and then we were first looking more towards a defensive strategy, how can we overcome it, but then we saw the great opportunities associated with it so that we can really grow top line. So what did we do? We started to build up a digital platform connecting customers, passengers, our products, so things which are our elevators and escalators, our workforce, and also last but not least the data which we have accumulated over the last 140 years. The first thing which we have been doing, we started about 3 years ago in a partnership with Apple to digitize our workforce. So 20,000 field technicians are working with a digital tool case and are now being much more able to run a better service. If you ask now the question, why are we doing all of that? There is basically two reasons. The one is, which is kind of a no-brainer, because there is 15 million equipments in the industry. And of course, what you are trying to do is to gain higher reliability and higher uptime. I think all of us had this experience that you were waiting for an elevator. And that's where we see a big opportunity in terms of the industrial internet. But the second thing, which we consider a great opportunity for us, Schindler is moving 1 billion people every day. So we have huge touch points to the passengers, and that's what we call the industrial user internet, where we see another big area of growth for us.
So what kind of data do you have? I think, you know, who presses the button? I mean, what kind of data do you have?
So we know, for instance, where Bill wants to go when he is coming into the office in the morning. We know which coffee you like, ideally. So that's really the business model we are looking for.
So you really know not just about, it's not just about moving people in and out. You really have a deep understanding of the people inside the building. And what do you imagine you do with that?
Well, there is exactly what you mentioned. We have this, we call it the segment one with our port technology, which we have developed 3-5 years ago. And there's certainly the whole area, what we call the passenger experience convenience. So that really it's giving you a much better work day, a much better day in your life when you move through the cities of the future. So that's also why we call it urban mobility and not just any more elevators and escalators.
I think that really is rethinking your business away from traditionally selling just machines to selling the whole experience then.
Absolutely, but coming back to what was also stressed very well by the speakers this morning, it's both, right? You still have the physics, and if you have the physics and are very capable in managing those, then on top of that, if you can add the digital, then you have a great play in the future.
So Murthy, you know, I talked a little bit about the cloud, the edge. You know, Intel provides chips. How do you actually think about your future, and what does all this mean to Intel?
Well, I think if you look at the industrial environments that we've talked about today, whether it be smart cities, smart factories, the environments of smart transportation, I think you're going to see an era where the endpoints that constitute those environments are just going to be consumptors and generators of huge amounts of data. And the applications and services that will be sitting on these endpoints are going to have different tolerances for latency for the services they carry, as well as generating different amounts of data that have to be transported over a network. And those concerns about minimizing latency and making sure that we don't overburden our network infrastructure with huge amounts of data, I think are going to require a complete rethink of our network architectures. And what will prevail, in Intel's opinion, is essentially technologies that we used to think will reside in the cloud, high levels of compute, storage, field programmable logic. That's pretty much going to have to be distributed into the very fabric of the network, and to be allowing the network to allow decisions to be made at the lowest hierarchy possible, to make sure that the backhaul doesn't get clogged with so much data that it just grinds to a halt, and to make sure that the latency we offer those applications for real-time, instantaneous decision-making is absolutely minimized. So I think with the growing acceleration of the concretization of the IoT vision and the growing proximity of 5G, that's going to lead to an environment where we see a complete transformation of the network.
And so how does that change your products, and what kind of things can you tell us about that?
Well, I think we have to bring to the network the same degree of changing identity that's very prevalent in the smartphone era now. Networks have to be able to be evolving and agile and adaptive. And that means we're going to have to go from bespoke, very specific silicon towards highly adaptable network infrastructures. We talk about advanced concepts such as network function virtualization and the software-defined network. Those are going to basically be the technical themes that transform our network from a monolithic construct into towards an agile, adaptive, evolving environment. And that's profoundly affecting to Intel and many other companies' visions of the future.
I was just getting used to everything moving to the cloud. Now you're moving everything back to the edge. So where's the cloud play in this?
Well, look, I think whether you call it a cloud or a fog, we're really talking about distributed compute and infrastructure. And the whole idea really is that we're trying to make decisions at the lowest hierarchy in the end-to-end construct that we can make. So I'd think a bit more of a enveloping fog than necessarily a distant cloud.
So we still are going to see this architectural shift from just the cloud, move everything to the cloud, to this highly distributed architecture in the next 5 years.
Absolutely. I think what you'll find is technologies that really have been developed in the cloud will now populate the network infrastructure itself.
So Michael, I think one of the things I always get asked is, for anybody who's leading this digital industrial in their company, is how do you sell it to your chairman? I'm still trying to learn how to do that. How did you do it?
Actually, I don't buy that from you, that you still have to do that. Well, I think we have always been quite innovative, and this was always being driven by our chairman. A long time ago, it was more mechanical innovation, like the machine room-less elevator. Then we developed 10 years ago the destination control, which is kind of a virtual elevator. And most recently, then the digital play. I think it was really driven by our chairman. He was very committed. So that's not so much the challenge. It's really to change the organization by itself, changing people, changing structures to really overcome that. Also, to some extent, going in a pace which is digestible for our customers. That's another challenge. So I would say that is a given that the chairman is behind of it. Actually, we learned a lot from GE in this respect, because we were learning from you guys. Why not us? This was very important to us. The other very important factor in which we are still struggling with, why not today? This is, by the way, another quote from GE. Why not today? So we are constantly using that in order to persuade our people, let's go the speed and let's start right away. That's the biggest struggle, not really the chairman, to be honest.
That's great. So Murthy, developer ecosystems. We're creating one. Some people wonder, why are you creating developer ecosystems? How important are they to where all this is going? What do you have to do? How should people think about it?
I think it's not an understatement to say that the development of an ecosystem is absolutely fundamental. You know, companies and partners like GE and Intel and many others that we work with are going to be able to create a great platform framework that provides a foundation and architecture that services many of the potential opportunities out there. But to really address the diversity of opportunities that are out there and the specifics of the end customer's needs, we're going to need a lot more help than just the brain power that exists inside our two companies. And I think that's really where the developer ecosystem comes in. The ideas they have related to specific industry niches are going to be immeasurably important to identify. And as you walk through the thoroughfare towards the stage through your hall today, I think you see the vibrancy of the ecosystem that you guys have created. And I think it's absolutely fundamental to make sure that we go from a generic framework, an opportunity, towards really fulfilling the needs of our customers. And I think many industries have shown that a vibrant ecosystem is absolutely the key to be able to doing that. So it's nothing short of fundamental to our success.
You have one of the largest developer ecosystems and developer ecosystem conferences. When you go there, you know, they don't want to. They're not talking about business. They're really focused on the technology. What are they pushing you on in your developer ecosystem conference?
You know, I walk away just blown away by the imagination of our ecosystem, and it constantly leaves me with the feeling we have so much more to do. so much more ambition to fulfill in the ecosystem that it really completely eradicates any sense of complacency or comfort that you've actually reached a point of success and comfort. It's a constant reminder that the power of the human brain pushes us on to do more and more and more. And I think it's an incredibly exhilarating drive for our own engineers to think about how people want to use our technology and give us that spirit of wanting to do more and more with what we've created.
Great. So Michael, last question. You know, we're certainly, you're working with Predict, but we're more than just a provider of technology. It's a partnership. Why the partnership? What do you expect from GE in that partnership?
Well, I think first of all, coming back general to the ecosystem, it's very uncommon for traditional industries to work in ecosystems. So it was a learning process also for Schindler, not just because we were a little bit, let's say, not used to it, like many other companies in our industry, but it's also because there was not really partners in the market. There was just software companies who were offering you products, but not solutions, and not really a track record of what we need. And then when we reached out to GE, we have found a real true partner who is living digital industrial, because you know both sides, you were able to speak the language. And I think that's really the key. We are not buying just a product, a software solution from you, but from GE, we really benefit from the track record, from all your experience, in particular in data analytics, and how to deal with it, how to apply that to the physical world. And that's a benefit you get, in our opinion, from GE, beside of the, I would say, really a great relationship on all of the different levels, which was starting from our chairman together with Jeff, and that really made the difference.
So Murthy, we announced continuing building on our partnership around the industrial internet, open architectures, developers. You know, tell us, what do you think of our partnership? What do we got to do to sort of win in the market?
Well, it's very clear, Bill, that we have to continue to fulfill that vision of being able to develop an end-to-end ecosystem for our key customers and application developers. So many of the ideas that we need to take from the laboratory to the fulfillment of our customer needs requires that end-to-end thinking, concepts such as security and service delivery. What's really transparent is we've come a long way, but we have a lot more to do, and probably a lot more partners to work with to fulfill the complement of skills we're going to need to make everybody really happy. So I think it's an exciting time. And the opportunities are absolutely real. And I think we've got a lot of the technology very much understood, but there's so much more that we need to do and encompass.
Did you guys ever think you'd be partnering with GE in this way?
I did, actually. I mean, it's difficult to not think about the industrial environment and not think about GE. They're a titan of the industry, and therefore, for Intel, clearly as somebody who we see as a thought leader in this area. I think the degree to which you've identified yourself as essentially a digital company is truly transformative, and that's really new to me.
Well, on that, it's time for us to wrap up. Thanks for your time and attention. It'll be a good chance to talk to these guys and learn from them. Take care. Bye.